Yo, what's up, guys? We can react to his story his story part two. If you see my other video, you probably like that one. So let's do it again. His story.
It was 1773, and the Boston Tea Party was just 2 days away when my dad slammed his teacup down on the table. "I know what those protesters are planning, and I'll kill you if you even dare to go near the King's tea ship. They'll hang whoever they catch." I nodded. Of course, Dad. But that night, I waited for his candle to go out, smeared ash on my face, took his axe off its peg, and climbed out my window. When I got there, half of Boston stood along the water watching 3 dark ships, and nobody made a sound. A man at the gangplank gripped my shoulder. "No names, no talking. If you're caught, you hang alone, and don't rat anyone out." I swallowed hard and stepped aboard. We split chest after chest and poured the tea over the rail, dust rising in clouds, leaves piling past my ankles, while a King's warship sat out in the dark with its guns. But halfway through, a chest slipped and cracked against the rail, and the sound rolled across the harbor. Every man froze with his axe in the air, and my heart slammed so hard I thought the crew could hear it. The lanterns stayed dark, so we kept swinging. By the end of the night, so much tea had piled up out of the shallow water instead of sinking, so me and the other men climbed down and shoveled it under. When I sneaked back home and sat down for breakfast, Dad didn't say a word, until he reached across the table, picked something out of my hair, and set it down between us. One wet leaf of tea. I stopped breathing. He stood up. "You went last night, didn't you?" I flinched, bracing for him to beat my ah. Instead, he walked past me, took the tea tin off the shelf, and shook every last leaf into the fire. "No son of mine drinks the King's tea. You'll be drinking mine." That was my dad telling me he was proud, in the only way he knew how. It was 1773.
Dang, bro. His story. I reacted to this. 10 days ago, 20 years ago. 19 days ago, I reacted to his story. That was my video. Now, I am, my toys, they call him Piggy.
I stared down the range at the target with my hands shaking, because if this arrow didn't hit a bullseye, my cousin was getting his face kicked in. Billy had cornered us behind the archery shed with his entire gang around him, and the counselors were across the field setting up dinner tables. Eric stood behind me with the word "Piggy" still drying in black Sharpie across his forehead. Billy stepped up grinning and put his arm on my shoulder. "I win every medal at this camp every year." I shoved his arm off. "If you hit a bullseye, you leave Eric alone for the rest of camp. If I hit one, you do whatever you want." Billy laughed and grabbed a bow off the rack. "Deal." He pulled back the string smooth like he'd done it 1,000 times and let the arrow fly. It landed an inch outside the bullseye, and his gang erupted behind him. Billy turned to me with that same grin and held the bow out. "Your turn, tough guy." I took the bow with my hands, sweating so bad I could barely grip it, lined up the arrow, and started pulling back the string. That's when one of Billy's friends drove his foot into my ribs from the side. I hit the dirt hard, and the bow flew out of my hands. Billy picked it up, walked over to Eric, and shoved the bow into his chest. Change of plans. If Eric wants to be left alone, Eric takes the shot. Eric raised the bow with both arms shaking so hard the arrow was bouncing up and down. Billy laughed from a few feet away. "Just let it go, Piggy. We're all waiting." Eric closed his eyes and let go. The arrow hit the target with a thud that everyone heard. Bullseye. The whole crowd went silent for a second and then exploded. Even some of Billy's own friends were yelling. Billy's grin dropped off his face. He marched straight at Eric and shoved him backward into the mud patch behind the targets. "Stay in the mud where you belong, pig." Nobody cheered. A kid in the back of the crowd said, "Dude, he beat you." Billy whipped around. "Shut up, nobody asked you." But the rest of the campers were already pulling out their phones, and his own friends had stepped back from him. Billy backed away and tripped into the same mud patch. Eric pushed himself up, walked over, and picked the bow up off the ground. He looked down at Billy with the Sharpie on his forehead running down his face from the sweat. "I think you look better in the mud." I stared down the range at the target with my hands shaking, because if this
This is probably the best one.
I was walking to meet
I
my
just
friend
heard
when
it
suddenly I
from-
stepped on a loose manhole cover
that-
and fell straight down into the sewer. I screamed and landed hard in freezing water. When I looked up, the manhole I'd fallen through was way too high to reach. I yelled, "Help! Somebody!" But no one saw me fall in. Then I heard a deep rushing sound getting louder. Before I could move, a wall of water slammed into me and swept me down the tunnel. As I was being dragged, I wondered how the hell was I going to get out of here. The current dragged me through the dark, slamming me into the walls. I went under and swallowed the nasty poopy water, kicking as hard as I could just to get my head up because I couldn't swim. I tried to reach for my phone to call for help, but it was gone. The water had ripped it right out of my pocket, and I had no way to contact anyone. Then I saw a ledge up ahead and attempted to grab it, but my body slammed into the concrete and I felt something crack in my ribs. I screamed but pulled myself up anyway, inch by inch, until I was finally out of the water. I laid there soaked and shaking. I had no phone, no way out, and the manhole was probably a mile behind me by now. Nobody knew I was down here, and I thought I was going to die being covered in poop and pee-pee. But then I heard voices above me. "Hey,
Ew,
he's
that's
down here,"
disgusting,
and a
bro.
flashlight hit my face. Firefighters lowered a rope and pulled me up out of the sewer. When I finally got to the street, gasping, my friend was standing right there. "Dude, you smell like but you're alive." I was confused. "How did you even know I was down here?" "I saw the whole thing. I was waiting for you across the street when you just dropped into the ground and I called 911. The firefighters said it took so long because the water swept me so far. I almost cried of relief until my friend held up his phone. He'd recorded me falling and laughed. "Is it okay if I post it?" I was walking to meet my friend.
Bruh. Why? What you posted, bro?
I climbed up to my
caught my
treehouse
card.
for the third time that week, and my Charizard was gone again. The card binder was open on the floor exactly how I'd left it,
Who
except the
steals
slot
cards,
in the
bro?
middle was
What the
empty.
heck?
My mom
You
didn't
didn't
even
even
look
know.
up from her laptop
wanna
when
be
I came
cool.
inside. "Honey, just lock the trap door next time." But I'd locked it the last 3 times, and they kept finding a way in. I went to my room, closed the door, and started thinking about how Kevin McAllister would handle this. I grabbed a bag of flour from the pantry and a bottle of maple syrup off the counter. I dumped half my sister's craft drawer of pink glitter into the syrup bottle and shook it until the inside looked like a snow globe. Up in the treehouse, I rigged a flour bucket and a syrup bucket above the trap door with a string set to tip them when the door swung open. Then I pulled my second best card, a holographic Blastoise, out of my binder and laid it in the middle of the treehouse floor where anyone climbing up would see it. I climbed back down, walked across the yard, and waited behind the oak tree. 20 minutes later, I heard the back gate creak open and 2 voices coming up my driveway. The taller one started up the ladder first. He poked his head through the trap door and froze. Dude, his holographic Blastoise is just sitting there." The other one shoved past him to climb up. I heard the trap door slam open against the floor. A cloud of white flour exploded out of the treehouse window. Both of them came stumbling onto the platform laughing. "Bro, that's it? That's all he had?" They were still wiping flour off their faces when the second bucket tipped and the syrup glitter dumped down on top of them. They froze. The taller one wiped at his shirt, and a streak of pink glitter spread across his whole chest. He wiped it again, and it spread further. They scrambled down the ladder and ran straight out of my backyard with glitter falling off them in trails, all the way down the main road through the neighborhood.
my
I climbed up to my
God. Oh
treehouse, picked my Charizard up off the grass below, where one of them had dropped it, and slid it back into my binder. They couldn't tell their parents what happened without admitting where they'd been. I climbed up to my treehouse for the 3rd time that week, and my Charizard was
A train was coming.
I was on the school bus heading home when the bus driver suddenly grabbed his chest and let out a painful grunt. He slumped forward over the controls, and the bus powered off under his weight. We stopped dead on the train tracks, unable to move. I panicked and immediately ran to the front, pressing my finger to his wrist. He barely has a heartbeat. Suddenly a kid screamed, and when I looked down the tracks, I saw a train far off in the distance heading our direction. I knew this track was only for automated cargo trains, meaning it wouldn't be slowing down. We needed to get out. We tried to
you
move
need
the
to get
driver
out,
off the
bro.
controls to start the bus. He's like 300 pounds, he won't move. I gripped my head in horror as the train got closer, and then I heard a bang behind me. Brian had punched through the back window and was screaming for everyone to get out. We climbed through, and the second my feet hit the gravel, I grabbed my chest, breathing again. We'd made it, but the train was closer now, and the driver was still slumped behind the wheel. We looked around at each other, and I screamed, "We have to push." Brian shook his head. "What if we're not fast enough and the train runs over us?" But I threw my palms against the back of the bus and pushed. That's why everyone has to help so that doesn't happen. All my classmates started pushing the bus. All all of us risking our lives, but the wheels were jammed against the rails and wouldn't roll. I screamed, "Everyone lift." All 20 of us got our hands under and lifted. My back screamed in pain, but the bus came off the ground an inch. Now every second person let go and start pushing. 10 kids let go, and the pain doubled across my back. They pushed, and the bus rolled off the rails. I let go and screamed, "Now everyone push." My vision blurred, my veins popped. The train horn blared, but we shoved the bus clear and jumped back from the tracks, right as the train drove by. I dropped to the grass, heaving. The bus driver was still slumped in his seat, but we'd risked our lives for him. He was alive. I was on the school bus heading home when the bus driver suddenly grabbed his chest and let out a painful...
Alright.
I'd been hall monitor for 10 minutes, and when I saw Mrs. Voss in the hallway with her coffee, I knew she was caught. For 2 years, she'd been catching me in the hall for stupid stuff like bathroom passes and untucked shirts. She'd put my nose 6 inches from the wall, and my hands flat on it while everyone walked by staring. When I got nominated last week, she walked past my desk laughing. "Pretend cops with felt badges. Good luck, kid." She forgot teachers had to follow the rules too. I stepped in front of her with my pad. "Ma'am, put it down. No drinks in the hall during class. Your rule." "Are you kidding me? Move." "I can't do that, ma'am. I'm just doing my job." 3 6th graders behind her stopped to watch. She set her coffee on the floor and walked to the office empty-handed. Wednesday, she tried to slip to the lounge during class without a pass, but I stepped in front of her. "Ma'am, where's your pass? Anyone in the hallway during class needs one. That's the rule. I'm a teacher. I don't need a pass. Move before I write you up. Then please step over to the wall, 6 inches from it. Hands flat. Your words." Her face froze. The crowd grew behind her. 5 kids, then 10, then half the math class next door spilling out into the hallway. 2 5th graders giggled and whispered, "Oh, she's in trouble," loud enough for her to hear. Voss walked to the wall with her shoulders dropped and pressed her nose against it while the hallway watched. Thursday, she stormed past me into the principal's office to tell on me. He pulled out the rule book she helped write and read the rule out loud. Hallway passes apply to teachers too. He signed her one in blue pen, the color she made every kid use. "You'll need this from now on, Voss, same as the kids." Friday, she didn't come into the hallway at all. I found her in the supply closet at lunch, sitting on a box of paper towels. "Please, I'm begging you. I get it. I was wrong. Just stop." I held up my pad. "But ma'am, you said I was just some pretend cop with a felt badge." She quit before Christmas break, but the badge is still on my shirt. I'd been hall monitor for 10 minutes, and when I saw Miss...
Alright.
I took one puff of my inhaler and the alarm exploded. The bathroom door flew open and the vice principal snatched it out of my hand. "Give me that vape, you little criminal." "That's not a vape, it's my inhaler. I have asthma and I need it to breathe. Give it back." He pulled his hands back, dropped it into a plastic bag and sealed it. "Please, the nurse gave it to me. I can't breathe without it." He just ignored me. "You can't even go 5 seconds without hitting a vape. What's wrong with your generation?" He tucked the bag under his arm, grabbed mine and pulled me into the hallway. I reached for the bag, but he yanked me forward. I grabbed his sleeve and tried to say, "I can't breathe," but nothing came out. He kept walking. My vision blurred. My knees hit the floor. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was in the nurse's office with an oxygen mask on my face. I looked up and saw my mom holding my hand. Nurse Amy had her stethoscope on my chest and was whispering to my mom. "He's lucky he made it." My mom stood up and slammed her fists against the door. That's when the vice principal walked in, holding the Ziploc bag with my inhaler like it was evidence. Well, well, well. Looks like the little criminal has woken up. "I can't believe you passed out because I didn't let you hit your vape." He looked at my mom and smiled. "You failed as a parent. You should be aware that your kid is doing drugs. Shame on you." My mom didn't say anything. She just raised her hand and slapped him. "You prick. I'm gonna sue you until you're left living under a bridge. You can't tell the difference between an inhaler and a vape?" He almost died in your hallway. He folded his arms. "Our new alarm system flagged it. Are you saying you're smarter than our technology?" My mom walked us into his office and pointed at the bag on his desk. Nurse Amy stepped forward and held up her phone. This is the approval I signed 2 years ago. I told you about it when you were hired. He looked past her at the monitor. It detected chemical compounds. That's what it's there for. I reached across the desk for the bag. He slid it toward himself. My mom pressed both hands flat on his desk. Pull up the sensor data, or I call the school board and they pull it up for you. He turned to the monitor and pulled up the sensor data. See? Right there. Chemical compounds. Exactly what the system is designed to catch. Nurse Amy walked up to the screen and leaned in. She stepped back. You confiscated albuterol sulfate. What is that? His rescue inhaler. The one I approved him to carry 2 years ago. The one that was keeping him alive. My mom grabbed the mouse and scrolled through the detection history. 17 alerts since the system was installed. All the same compound, same time, same bathroom. And not once did anyone check. My mom snatched the plastic bag off his desk, opened it, and handed me my inhaler. She looked him in the eye. You trusted a machine over a child who couldn't breathe. I took a puff of my inhaler and told him this mango berry vape is amazing. I took one puff of my I lied about my age.
What's the most popular one now? It's still like a tap.
I beat it in Neza Tower.
Nice.
My daughter came home crying with an F because her teacher doesn't know what color blood is. The first time I realized something was wrong, Riley came home from school holding out her arm. Look, Dad, you can see the blue blood in my veins right here. She traced the blue lines under her skin with her finger. I put down my coffee and looked at her. Actually, sweetheart, that's not true. Blood is always red because of hemoglobin. It's just darker red in your veins. Her face scrunched up. But Mrs. Miller showed us a whole PowerPoint about it. She even had diagrams from a science book. The next morning, I packed my work scrubs in my bag. I'm an ER nurse at Mercy General, and I was working the afternoon shift anyway. I sent Mrs. Miller an email asking if I could do a quick presentation about blood for career day that afternoon. She loved the idea. When I arrived, Mrs. Miller introduced me as Riley's dad who works at the hospital. 28 kids stared up at me from their desks. I heard you guys learned that blood is blue inside your body, I said. The entire class nodded enthusiastically. Mrs. Miller beamed from her desk in the corner. I pulled out a blood collection tube from my pocket and held it up. This is what we use to draw blood at the hospital. Notice something. The tube creates a vacuum. No oxygen inside at all. I paused. When we draw blood with these, it never touches oxygen until we pop the cap off. I showed them photos on my phone of sealed blood tubes. See? Still red. Mrs. Miller's smile started fading. She shifted in her chair and cleared her throat. A boy raised his hand and pointed to their science textbook. But our textbook says it's blue. I picked up the book and checked the publication date, 1998. Medicine updates pretty fast. We used to think lots of things that turned out to be wrong. Mrs. Miller suddenly stood up from her desk, her hands gripping the edge. Well, thank you for that interesting presentation, Mr. Johnson, but we need to move on to math now. I nodded and started packing when a girl in the back raised her hand. So our textbook is wrong? The class erupted in whispers. Mrs. Miller's jaw clenched and her voice got tight. The curriculum says, actually, I interrupted, pulling up the state science standards on my phone. I walked over and turned my phone toward her. The current curriculum specifically mentions this myth as something to correct. She stared at the screen and her eyes narrowed. Her mouth pressed into a thin line and her nostrils flared. Can I speak with you in the hallway? The kids watched as we walked out and the door closed behind us. Do you have any idea how hard it is when parents undermine my authority? Her face was red and her voice was sharp. Now they'll question everything I say. I kept my voice calm. Isn't that exactly what we want them to do? Question things and learn critical thinking? She crossed her arms tightly. I've been teaching for 22 years. I'm not changing my whole curriculum because some nurse thinks he knows better than our textbooks. The next day, I found out Mrs. Miller gave the class a pop quiz. Riley came home crying, her face red and puffy. Her hands were shaking as she handed me a paper with a big red F on it. I took a deep breath and felt my jaw tighten as I looked at the question. What color is blood inside the body? Riley had written red, and Mrs. Miller had marked it wrong. I requested a meeting with Principal Davis and brought printouts of medical textbooks, the state science standards, and Riley's quiz. The principal called in Mrs. Miller and asked her directly, is blood blue inside the body? After a long pause, Mrs. Miller said, it's what the children understand better. I leaned forward in my chair. My daughter is crying every morning before school because she's afraid of getting Fs for writing down the truth. The next day, the school replaced their science books. Now whenever Riley learns something new at school, she comes home and asks me, Dad, is this actually true or is it just a Mrs. Miller truth? My daughter came home crying with an F.
Alright, really, what the heck? Alright.
My teacher stormed into class and yelled, "Who here watches anime?" 10 of us raised our hands, and she pointed to the door, telling us to go outside. She led us through the hallways in silence to the principal's office, where a police officer was waiting with a notepad. We sat down, and the teacher stood at the front with her arms crossed. "Who has seen Dragon Ball Z?" 9 hands went up, and she pointed at the kid with his hand down. Back to class. She walked over to the principal's computer and pulled up an image. 5 characters from Naruto. "Name them, right now." 2 kids just stared at the screen, and she pointed them to the door. Then she held up a quote and handed out blank slips, angrily telling us to write down what anime it was from. I wrote One Piece, but 2 kids handed theirs back empty and left. Me and my friend John were among the 5 left. John was shaking, and I didn't know why, but I saw the police officer note it. The teacher slammed a blank paper in front of everyone with instructions on the board. Finally, draw a face in manga style. 3 of the kids' pencils never moved. The teacher looked at me and John. "You 2 draw manga, yes?" We nodded and she said, "Good. Go grab your manga art and bring it back here. The rest of you are free to go." We walked out, and I kept wondering what the hell this was about. We came back with our sketchbooks, but this time the teacher's daughter was here too, and she was crying. She was John's crush in our class, but she hadn't raised her hand earlier, so what was she doing here? Just as I was about to ask, the teacher took our drawings. She handed both sketchbooks to her daughter, who started flipping through. She stopped on one of John's pages and pointed at it. "That's the one." She wiped her tears and walked out. The officer stood and walked to John, grabbing his hands and cuffing them behind his back. "You have the right to remain silent." John had a guilty expression as they led him out the door. I stood there confused and shocked. What just happened? The teacher started crying, and the principal spoke for her. "Remember Secret Santa last week?" he asked me. "Someone gave her daughter a hand-drawn manga, multiple pages." The teacher spoke through tears. "That manga was lowly content. My underage daughter was drawn in explicit scenarios with characters from Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, and One Piece." My teacher stormed into class and yelled, "Who
That
here
was an interesting story. But I don't watch anime.
No, we gotta jump.
I yelled, "I'm gonna get you," while playing tag, my fingers almost reaching Jake's back. But right as my fingers brushed against his sweater, a random woman yanked me back. I saw Jake get away, but when I looked at the lady, she was crying, staring right at me. "I'm taking you to the police. You won't get away with this." She immediately grabbed me by my wrist and dragged me, but I had no idea what she was talking about. I slapped her hand. "Lady, let go of me." I was so close, but she only gripped tighter, dragging me across the park while everyone stared. Then I noticed a little girl trailing behind her, looking at me terrified. She dragged me until she found a cop. The cop saw her red face and trembling hands and said, "Ma'am, is everything all right?" She pointed a shaking finger at me. "He's dangerous. He tried to kidnap those kids at the park. Arrest him now." My jaw dropped. "What? Me?" My friends ran over. "Are you in trouble?" The cop looked at me, then at the hysterical woman, confused. "I was playing tag with my friends," but she only got louder. "Don't trust him." She pulled her daughter close. "He's a danger to my daughter." I didn't understand why she was so upset, accusing me of something I obviously didn't do, and snapped, "What the hell is wrong with you, lady?" The cop put his hand up. "Ma'am, he's a child. Tell me what's really going on, or I'm arresting you for harassing a minor." The whole park circled around her, and the woman's face crumbled as she dropped to her knees. "A year ago, a man tried to kidnap my daughter from this park."
Alright.
Her voice was shaking. When he grabbed her, he said, "I'm gonna get you." Every time I hear those words, she fell into her daughter, sobbing. The cop's face softened. She looked at me. "I'm sorry. I'm still going to therapy for it." I felt bad for her, but I had a game to finish. I turned around, ran straight up to Jake, and tapped his back. "Anyway, you're it." I yelled, "I'm gonna get you," while playing tag, my fingers almost
could a
reaching Jake's
kid
back,
kidnap
but right as my
kids?
fingers brushed
Bro, like, what? Yes. How can a kid kidnap kids?
My daughter woke me up. "Daddy, something in the toilet tried to grab me." It was 2 a.m., but I checked the toilet anyway. I checked under the lid, inside the bowl, behind the tank. Nothing. I asked her to describe what she felt, and she thought about it for a second and said, "Like a hand, with a long nail." I put her back to bed, and when I told my wife what happened, she said, "That's weird. I felt something last week too." The next morning, I was in the middle of checking the pipes when my daughter came into the kitchen and said, "Daddy, can we get a new toilet? The hand that tried to grab me keeps screaming." I called a plumber. But before he came, my daughter appeared in my bedroom doorway again. Daddy, I figured out what it was. I have a surprise for you. In her room, on her desk, was a moving shoebox with a book on top of it. I slowly lifted the corner of it. Inside was a rat, soaking wet, long tail whipping the sides of the box, scrambling over itself to get out. I slammed it shut. I grabbed my daughter by the shoulders. Did it touch you? No, Daddy! I didn't believe her. I drove her to the hospital myself, called animal control from the parking lot, and sat next to her while they ran every test they needed to run. My daughter was given the all clear, but my wife was at risk for disease because they found a scratch on the back of her thigh from the toilet rat. Apparently, the chances of a rat or snake coming up your toilet isn't as impossible as you'd think. My daughter woke me up. Daddy,
That's not Captain Hawk.
The flight attendant slipped me a napkin that said, "The pilot isn't who he says he is. Meet me in the back to talk." I knew she chose to tell me because of the military dog tags around my neck. I folded the napkin and slid it into my pocket, and that's when the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Good morning, folks. This is Captain Hopkins, expecting smooth skies to Chicago." But something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. I waited 2 minutes and casually walked to the back, not knowing what to expect. The flight attendant was there with a man holding up a police badge. The man whispered, "I'm glad you're here. I'm an undercover cop." I knew something was wrong straight away. The flight attendant whispered, "I've flown with Captain Hopkins for 6 years. I don't exactly know what's wrong, but I know that's not Hopkins, and we're flying the wrong way." She showed me the flight map of where we were heading. The plane is heading toward an abandoned airport. I leaned over the map. My body was pumping with adrenaline because it was the perfect place to crash a plane. There's an empty space above the pilot's room. I can climb up and listen to what the pilot and co-pilot are planning through the ceiling. Take my number. If you can tell there's something fishy going on, text me one word, now. That's the signal to move. And to distract everyone while I climbed above the ceiling, the flight attendant made an announcement on the speakers to tell everyone to keep their seatbelts on. Through the cracks, I could hear 2 men in the pilot's room talking. 15 years ago today, our brother died because of Captain Hopkins. Now we get to crash his plane with him tied up on it while we impersonate him. I texted the undercover cop. Now, the cart slammed into the pilot's room door, and the cop kicked it open. I dropped through the ceiling and tackled the fake pilot out of his seat. The cop pinned the co-pilot to the floor. The flight attendant grabbed the radio. "Mayday, our pilot is gone." "Morning, folks. This is Captain Hopkins, expecting smooth skies to Chicago." But something was wrong. I could back of the plane checking every door. Now, she looked at me. "Find Hopkins, the actual pilot. He has to be on this plane somewhere." I sprinted to the back of the plane, checking every door. I yanked open the closet next to the bathrooms, and Captain Hopkins was inside with his hands tied and tape across his mouth. I ripped the tape off. "Get me to the controls." He ran to the front and dropped into the pilot's chair. He grabbed the wheel. "Tower, this is the real Captain Hopkins. I'm landing this plane." When we finally landed, the cops dragged the brothers off in handcuffs. The flight attendant came up to me in the aisle. I pulled the napkin out of my pocket and held it up. "You saved 200 lives with this." She smiled and took it back. The flight attendant slipped me a napkin that's... Every time we heard a knock on the front door, my dad would yell, "Stealth mode," and we had 30 seconds to kill every light in the house. My brother and I would race through the rooms, flipping switches, yanking cords, shutting off the TV mid-show, while some guy outside banged on the front door yelling, "I know you're in there, buddy." Dad timed us. Once everything was dark, no talking, no moving, no looking out the windows. We'd sit there until Dad did his owl hoot, which meant all clear. Sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes almost an hour. Afterwards, he'd high-five us and go, "Real ninjas couldn't do better." He told us stealth mode was top secret. Never tell your teachers, your friends, nobody. Other people wouldn't understand. For years, I believed him. When I was 8, I asked Dad why we had to hide so much. He said some annoying guy kept bothering our family, and stealth mode was how we dealt with him. I felt proud we had a secret skill that could outsmart bad guys. By the time I was 10, I heard the voice outside yell something about a bet and $20. I tugged Dad's sleeve and whispered, "Is the bad guy trying to steal our money?" Dad shushed me so hard I flinched. When I was 12, I broke the window rule, peeked through the blinds, and saw a completely normal guy in a polo shirt standing on the porch rubbing his forehead. He didn't look like a criminal. He looked like someone's tired uncle. At 13, I told Dad I was just going to open the door and tell the guy to leave us alone. The color left his face. "You absolutely cannot do that." That was the first time stealth mode didn't feel like a game. By 15 or 16, it barely happened anymore. But when it did, Dad would peek through the blinds looking guilty. Mom just shook her head from the couch and muttered something under her breath. I was 17 and home alone when I heard heard it. I know you're in there. It's been 12 years, man. I opened the front door. The guy nearly fell backwards. Normal-looking dude, middle-aged, holding a crumpled piece of paper. Oh, hi. Is your dad home? I'm his old college roommate. He held up the paper. Your old man bet me $20 Michael Jordan wouldn't win his 6th ring. That was 1998. I've been knocking on this door ever since. He handed me the IOU, both their signatures, right there at the bottom. I left it on the kitchen table. Mom saw it first and laughed so hard she had to hold the counter. Dad picked it up, read it, put it back down, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "So now he knows someone's home." Then he turned off the kitchen light and got under the table. We were never in danger. My dad just lost a bet because of the greatest of all time. Every time we heard a knock on the front door, my dad...
Yep. All you can eat.
I got banned from an all-you-can-eat buffet, so I made sure the owner never forgot
so
my
all
face. I
you
spent
can
the whole
eat.
day before starving
eat
myself
all
on
day.
purpose. So when I walked into that buffet, I loaded my first plate so high,
Dang,
the
bro.
server stopped and watched me carry it to my table. I could see the steam rising off the ribs as I sat down. I took my first bite and savored every second of it. That was just the start. Second plate, I went back for lasagna, mashed potatoes, and a pile of garlic bread. By my third plate, the servers started slowing down every time they walked past my table. One of them stopped and just stared at me like I was eating her groceries. By my fifth plate, I caught a tiny Asian man peeking out at me from behind the soda machine every few seconds. Plate 7, I stacked another round of ribs on my tray like building blocks and grabbed a handful of brownies from the kids section. That was it for him. He marched out from behind the machine with 2 workers behind him. Stop eating. You here since 4 o'clock. My cooks are crying. I pointed at the sign on the wall. It says all you can eat. He told me to get out. I stood up, walked right past him, and started making plate 8. He pulled out his phone and called the cops. I sat back down and kept eating. I was mid-bite with sauce dripping down my chin when 2 officers walked through the front door. Every head in the restaurant turned. The officers looked confused. What exactly did he do? The manager threw his hands in the air. This man eats 7 plate. 7! I call you 10 minutes ago, and he go back for more. One of the officers took off his hat and rubbed his whole face with his hand. Sir, could you just go, please? They walked me out. I still had food on my plate. The manager followed us to the door. You banned. Forever. I put your picture on the wall so nobody forget you face. So I got revenge. The next week I sat down at my kitchen table and designed a flyer. Free lobster tail night. First 100 guests eat free. I printed 200 copies and spent a whole afternoon sliding them under windshields all over town. That Friday night, I bought a box of ribs from the place across the street and sat on the hood of my car in his parking lot. By 6, the lot was full. By 7, people were lined up out the door waving flyers in the air demanding their free lobster. The manager came outside sweating through his shirt. I don't have lobster. This a buffet. What I look like Gordon Ramsay. A woman in the front started banging on the window. A man in the back yelled they weren't leaving until they got their lobster. Someone picked up a pile of dog poop off the ground and launched it right at his face. The manager was spinning in circles screaming, and that's when he saw me. I held up a rib and took a bite. Delicious. I got banned from an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Actually kind of interesting.
We were in the middle of a test
He
when I
aimed it
caught
at
a
my
student
dog.
whispering and pointing into his backpack. But just as I was about to stand up and bust him for cheating, he pulled out something metal and black. This kid was known for causing trouble and harassing multiple girls, one of them being my daughter. And since I was lucky
why
enough
does
to
he
teach her that
harass
year,
girls
she was
for?
sitting right in front of him. I instantly started getting nervous. I didn't have a clear enough view to be sure what it was, but knew I had to get a better look, so I stood up pretending
Yo,
to help
go
one of my
shake it.
students. However, the second I got a closer look, I realized what it was. It was a handgun.
Handgun?
My hands started shaking, but as I sat back down, I dialed 911 on my phone,
Yeah,
but
call
knew he'd hear
911.
me if I even whispered. I knew I couldn't just walk out of the room and leave them in there, so I texted our principal, praying he'd respond. Sweat was dripping onto my desk, and as he held up finger guns at her, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. That's when I got an idea. I looked at that same student and wrote her a note that said, "Ask me to use the bathroom. Go get the principal, get him to check his phone, and leave the school immediately." And when I handed it to her, she could see how terrified I was. But without saying anything, she left the room. It took everything to hold back my tears. But then someone knocked on the door. Our principal walked in the room, and I
Nice.
immediately saw the kid get nervous. The principal walked up and asked him, "Could you come into the hall with me?" And he stood up with one hand still in his backpack. My heart raced
No.
as he walked past my daughter, but
no.
just before he
Yo,
finally
no.
left the room,
No,
he
kid,
stopped.
no,
Everyone
no.
watched,
Don't
and I
pull
saw
the
him
gun out.
unzip his bag.
Don't
My
pull the
heart
gun
stopped,
out.
but before anyone could do
Don't
anything, racing.
pull
He
the
pulled
gun
out the
out.
gun and aimed it directly at my
No.
daughter. I yelled, "No,
No.
don't!" and everyone screamed. I ran towards her, diving in
Yo.
front of her to stop it. I saw police
Yo.
running in behind
Yo.
him, but
Yo,
in
yo,
slow
yo,
motion,
yo, yo.
I saw him
Yo.
pull the trigger.
Yo,
This was it for
don't.
me. I heard the click and was
Yo.
ready to take a bullet to the spleen, but when I hit the ground, I felt nothing. The police ran in and grabbed him
Wait,
from
what?
behind, and when the gun hit the floor, I saw he forgot to take the safety
Oh
off.
my God,
We were in the
bro.
middle of a test when I caught a
Oh my god. Bro forgot to take the safety off the gun, bro. Bruh. Make sure you take the seat. This guy can get away. Alright. I have Gary right now. Let's watch this one.
My 12-year-old sister and I were home alone upstairs when we heard the front door burst open. A voice I didn't recognize yelled, "Fire, fire, get out!" But I didn't smell fire, and anything that could have caused one was turned off. I realized whoever this was trying to lure us out. I crept towards the door and locked it, but when I looked over at my sister, she was shaking like she knew something I didn't. Suddenly, I heard footsteps slowly coming up the stairs. The handle started rattling like crazy,
No.
and the voice again yelled, "This is the fire department. Please come out." I looked out the window and didn't see a fire truck. I brought me and my sister to the ledge intending to climb out, but a white van I didn't recognize sat parked across the street. A man in the driver's seat was looking directly at me, almost like he was daring me to get out. My heart was racing, and my sister kept whispering for me to do something. The door handle
Yeah, do
rattling had
something.
now also stopped, which was somehow scarier. I pulled out my phone and called our dad. I told him everything and prayed he'd come quickly. That's when my sister grabbed my hand. She whispered she knows the person outside our door. It's the kid from school who was harassing her. I hugged her and grabbed a remote nearby, promising I'd protect her if he comes in. But then I smelled something, actual smoke coming from downstairs. I realized that's why the rattling had stopped. The kid had gone down and lit a real fire. My hands shook, but I didn't even have time to react before a hard kick rattled our door. Then another
Yo.
kick and another.
Yo.
My sister was sobbing,
Yo.
and I knew I had to stay calm for her. I told her, "Let's try the window again." We crept over, and the white van was now empty. This was our chance. I helped my sister onto the ledge, but when she looked down to start climbing, she went pale. The man from the van was right there, smiling at her. He grabbed the drain pipe on the wall and began climbing up. My sister jumped back
Yo.
in, and we just
No.
hugged. Hearing our door splinter and accepting
Yo.
this was the end. We were going to die. But then I heard the squeal of tires. Our dad's car was in the driveway.
Alright.
He got out and sprinted, pulling the man off the drain pipe and hitting him over the head. Then he ran inside, not caring that the fire had spread so much it swallowed him immediately. Our door was barely holding on. The kid kicked one more time, and the hinges gave out. The door swung open. He had a knife
Bang.
raised above his
Yo.
head, and he lunged right at my sister like I wasn't even there. My heart dropped. My body reacted before my brain, and I jumped in front of my sister, preparing to get stabbed to save her life. The knife was inches away from my chest when out of nowhere the kid stopped. His face fell, and he dropped to the floor completely.
Yo.
Blood started pooling from his back. I looked into the hallway and saw my dad with his gun
Yo.
raised and the smoke from the fire
my
downstairs
God.
rising around him. My 12-year-old
Dang,
sister and I
bro.
were home alone upstairs when we heard the front door burst open. A voice I didn't recognize yelled, "Fire, fire, get out!"
Oh man.
The morning of the field trip, my mom taped a phone to my ankle and grabbed my face. "If anything goes wrong, you call me right away." Our school had banned all phones after 3 8th graders filmed themselves breaking things in the bathroom, and now a security guard searched every single backpack at the front door every morning with no exceptions. My heart was pounding so hard during the security check that I was sure the guard could hear it, but he just unzipped my backpack, looked inside, and waved me through. I climbed onto the bus with the phone still pressing against my ankle. I had no idea I was going to need it. 20 minutes into the drive, our bus driver, Mr. Pete, made a strange gasping sound and fell forward onto the steering wheel. His foot pressed down hard on the gas, and the bus swerved and crashed through the metal guardrail on a bridge. I gripped the seat in front of me and screamed as we flew through the air for 2 full seconds. Then we hit the river like a wall. Water poured in through the broken front window right away, and the bus started tipping nose first toward the bottom. 6 of us threw our whole bodies against the emergency exits, and nothing moved. The doors won't open. The water was already at our waists and rising fast. I reached down and ripped the phone off my ankle and dialed 911 with shaking hands. Our bus is sinking and we are trapped. The operator stayed completely calm. I have your location. Help is 2 minutes away. The water reached our necks and kids climbed onto seats, pressing their faces into the last few inches of air near the ceiling. Then something slammed into the back window from outside and it shattered. The dive team was there and they started pulling kids out one by one. I sat on the shore shivering as 3 kids got CPR, and thankfully every single one survived. Mr. Pete survived a heart attack because help reached him in time. The school got rid of the phone ban the following week, and my mom always makes sure I have my phone before I leave the house. The morning of the field trip, my mom taped a phone to my ankle and grabbed my face. A girl named Madison bumped into me in the hallway, and my science project I was carrying dropped and cracked on the floor. I'd spent 4 weeks making my own organic stain remover spray, and now the liquid was all over the floor. I quickly grabbed the bottle to save what was left, and Madison looked down at me and laughed. "Guess your stupid project is ruined. Mine's way better anyway. See you in the gym." She laughed and walked off. I carried my project to the gym and started supergluing the bottle of my spray together. But Madison sat at the table next to me and laughed at me trying to repair my project. She announced, "This was so easy if you're actually smart. I barely spent 20 minutes and mine's still better." She pointed at my project. I finished my repair just as the judges started walking around, but I barely had enough spray left to demonstrate anything. The judges reached Madison and she proudly showed off her volcano made of red paper mache. She told them the inside of the volcano was filled with red ink. Then she held up a button and said, "If I press this, the ink will flow out of it like lava. Would you like to see?" The judges were impressed and nodded, but when she pressed the button, nothing happened. Her smile dropped and she slammed the button repeatedly, but again, nothing. The judges leaned in and wrote something on their clipboards, but suddenly the ink exploded. It went all over the judges' white shirts and ruined their clothes. Madison went pale and grabbed tissues to try clean it, but when she wiped their shirts, she smeared the ink around and only made it worse. The judges backed away and told her to stop. She kept apologizing, but they just moved to my project next, still in their destroyed shirts. They asked me, "What is your project?" And I replied, "Let me show you." I took out my stain remover spray, sprayed it on their shirts, and wiped it with my own brush I'd also made. Immediately, the ink stains disappeared. The judge's face dropped as he yelled, "My shirt is clean again." One by one, I cleaned every judge's shirt, using up every last drop of my spray. They gave me the gold ribbon, and when I looked over, Madison threw her arms in the air in anger and knocked her volcano over. The rest of the red ink spilled onto her clothes, and I just held up my empty bottle of stain remover. Too bad, I'm all out. Bet you wish you had my stupid project now. A girl named Madison bumped into me in the hall.
Yo. Bruh.
It was my first day in prison when a 300-pound inmate took one look at me and started sobbing. I was walking down the cell block to find my bunk when he started charging at me like he wanted to kill me. I froze because I had no idea what was going on. Guards tackled him and pinned him to the ground. He was screaming in anger while tears ran down his face. Before I could process what happened, an inmate grabbed my arm. "That's Big Vaughn. Don't mess with him. He's put 3 guys in the infirmary." I didn't do anything though. He charged at me. I've never even seen him before. He shook his head. "He's probably targeting you. You need to watch your back." I had never seen this man before in my life. Why does he want to kill me? The next day, I walked into the cafeteria. Vaughn was sitting at a table laughing with other inmates. Then he turned his head and saw me. His smile dropped. His eyes started watering with tears, like he was extremely upset to see me. And before I could react, he picked up his food tray and threw it directly towards my face. I ducked. Guards rushed in and dragged him out. He was crying and screaming the whole way out again. Why was this 300-pound man crying? An inmate next to me said, "What did you do to him?" I swear I've never seen him before. That's weird. He's cool with everybody else. I was scared because I didn't know how far he would take his hatred towards me. And later that night, when the cell block was quiet, I was walking back from the bathroom when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around. Vaughn was right behind me. I looked down and saw that he had a sharpened piece of metal in his hand, and I knew he was ready to attack me. I backed into the wall. He pinned me. The blade was inches from my face. He was crying again. I put my hands up up. I don't want any problems. Why do you hate me so much? I never did anything to you. He inched it closer. It's because you look just like him. Like who? What are you talking about? His hand was shaking, and suddenly, his arm dropped. He slumped against the wall, sobbing. You look like the man who killed my daughter. I almost killed him for what he did, and they arrested me, not him. He got away with it because he lied to the court and said I was the one to kill my own daughter. His voice cracked. I just miss my daughter. Before I could say anything, guards burst through the door. They saw Vaughn holding the contraband piece of metal, handcuffed him, and dragged him to solitary. No one's seen him since. It was my first day in prison when a 300-pound inmate took one look at me and started sobbing.
Hey, bro. Yeah, he's probably
I woke up to the sound of something banging, and when I sat up, I saw one of the guards hitting my cell. He was in his 70s, and when I looked closer, he started clenching his chest and was struggling to breathe. All of the inmates loved him. He wasn't like any of the other guards. He would always sneak us extra food, and during holidays, he would buy us books and movies to watch. He started gasping for air, and by the time I realized what was happening, he was now on the floor having a heart attack. I instantly started calling for help, but none of the other guards were nearby. The entire block started waking up, freaking out, doing anything we could to get someone's attention. Help! We need help! But by then, he had stopped breathing, and we knew we had to act fast. He was close enough to my cell, and I knew I had no other choice. I did something strictly against the rules, and grabbed his keycard. I let myself out, and as soon as we could, someone did CPR. We all stood around, praying it would work. We took off our shirts and grabbed pillows for him to lay down. But as the inmate slammed on his chest, trying to bring him back to life, we thought he had to be gone. I saw some of the toughest guys I've ever seen tearing up. He was everyone's favorite officer, and we were all emotional. One of the biggest inmates knelt down next to him, hitting his chest in anger. Please, wake up! And just as he slammed his fist into his chest, he shot up. He was breathing, gasping for air, and none of us could believe it. The medical team rushed in, and by some miracle, he survived. And since we saved his life, we all got our sentences reduced. I woke up to the sound of something banging, and when I sat up, I saw one of the guards hitting my cell. He was in his 70s, and when I looked closer, he started clenching his chest and was struggling to breathe. All of the inmates loved him. She slid me a $20 bill during lunch and whispered, I need you to be my boyfriend for exactly 4 hours. I nearly choked on my sandwich. You see, Lisa was the most popular girl in 9th grade, and I was the kid who got embarrassed during PE warm-ups. But $20 was $20. She explained that her ex-boyfriend, Bart, was bringing his new girlfriend to the school carnival that afternoon, and she needed to look completely over it and thriving. The plan was simple. Hold hands, share cotton candy, win her a stuffed animal, and make it look natural. What she didn't mention was that Bart was about 6 feet tall and seemed like the kind of guy who'd been around a bit longer than the rest of us. Lisa even coached me on what to say. Compliment my hair every 10 minutes, she instructed. And if Bart gets too close, put your arm around me like you're protecting me. She made me practice walking with confident swagger in the empty hallway behind the gym. She also gave me a crash course in boyfriend basics. Call me babe, but not too much, she said, counting on her fingers. Laugh at my jokes, even if they're terrible. And whatever you do, don't let go of my hand first. The whole thing felt like studying for the world's weirdest test. The carnival started fine. We walked around holding hands while Lisa laughed way too loudly at everything I said. Oh my gosh, you're so funny, she'd shriek when I pointed out that the ring toss was rigged. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I had to keep this act going. I kept trying to remember her rules, dutifully complimenting her hair every few minutes and calling her babe in what I hoped was a natural way. The other kids were definitely
Before you go watch Spider-Man Brand New Day, these are 4
She slid me a $20 bill during lunch and whispered, I need you to be my boyfriend for exactly 4 hours. I nearly choked on my sandwich. You see, Lisa was the most popular girl in 9th grade, and I was the kid who got embarrassed during PE warm-ups. But $20 was $20. She explained that her ex-boyfriend, Bart, was bringing his new girlfriend to the school carnival that afternoon, and she needed to look completely over it and thriving. The plan was simple. Hold hands, share cotton candy, win her a stuffed animal, and make it look natural. What she didn't mention was that Bart was about 6 feet tall and seemed like the kind of guy who'd been around a bit longer than the rest of us. Lisa even coached me on what to say. Compliment my hair every 10 minutes, she instructed. And if Bart gets too close, put your arm around me like you're protecting me. She made me practice walking with confident swagger in the empty hallway behind the gym. She also gave me a crash course in boyfriend basics. Call me babe, but not too much, she said, counting on her fingers. Laugh at my jokes, even if they're terrible. And whatever you do, don't let go of my hand first. The whole thing felt like studying for the world's weirdest test. The carnival started fine. We walked around holding hands while Lisa laughed way too loudly at everything I said. "Oh my gosh, you're so funny," she'd shriek when I pointed out that the ring toss was rigged. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I had to keep this act going. I kept trying to remember her rules, dutifully complimenting her hair every few minutes and calling her babe in what I hoped was a natural way. The other kids were definitely buying it. I heard someone whisper, "When did Lisa start dating him?" At the duck pond game, I tried to win her a prize, but kept missing. Lisa squeezed my hand and whispered, "Bart's watching from the Ferris wheel." That's when I somehow managed to knock down 3 ducks in a row and won her a giant stuffed bear. She hugged it and squealed, "My boyfriend is so talented." We shared cotton candy next, and Lisa made sure to feed me pieces while giggling. "You're getting it all over your face," she said, wiping my cheek with her thumb. I was starting to think maybe this whole fake boyfriend thing wasn't so bad after all. Then we rode the tilt-a-whirl together, and Lisa screamed and grabbed onto my arm the whole time. When we got off, she was still holding on, and for a second, I forgot she was paying me. "That was amazing," she breathed, looking up at me with those sparkling eyes. Then Bart showed up. He took one look at us and marched over, with his new girlfriend trailing behind. "Lisa, what's this supposed to be?" he demanded. Before she could answer, I panicked and did the stupidest thing possible. I quickly kissed her on the cheek like we were in some cheesy movie. The crowd of 7th graders around us went silent. Bart's girlfriend gasped. Even the carnival music seemed to stop. When we broke apart, Lisa stared at me with wide eyes. Then she kissed me back with a big smile. "This is my new boyfriend," she announced to Bart, "and he's amazing." Bart looked like he was ready to explode. But what could he do? Start a fight at the school carnival over his ex-girlfriend? We spent the rest of the afternoon actually having fun. Lisa won me a goldfish at the ring toss, and I bought her elephant ears with powdered sugar. By the time her mom picked us up, I'd almost forgotten it was all fake. Almost. The next Monday, Lisa walked past me in the hallway like nothing had happened. When I tried to wave, she looked right through me. I even said, "Hey Lisa," but she just kept walking like I was invisible. But hey, $20 is $20, and I still have that goldfish. She slid me a $20 bill
I will become the nightmare of this realm.
tag hanging from my rearview mirror, but her camera didn't move. I kept my hands flat.
Alright, guys, well, that was it today. That was actually... Bruh, his story is cooking right now. How many subscribers does he have? He has 4.59 million subscribers.
Wha-
Dang, bro.
what? I never knew he had a lot of subscribers.
No,
It was
his
1770.
story.
Oh.
Yeah, so, bye-bye.